Thanks for listening to Leadership Level Up. I'm Brian Prairie.
And I'm Dr. Jeff Williamson.
I am just starting my leadership journey.
And I've been guiding leaders for 30 years.
Our podcast aims to shine a spotlight on outstanding leaders and provide a platform for them to describe their leadership journey and share the guiding principles that have helped them become great leaders.
Welcome to Leadership Level Up. I'm your host, Jeff Williamson, and I'm excited to have a friend back with us that we talked to a while back. Donnie Bedney is with us, and he shared a lot of great nuggets the last time we had a conversation. He is the owner of PSP Metrics, and we're going to talk a good bit more on this episode about his business and what they do and how his leadership shows up specifically in that context. So, Donnie, welcome back. Great to have you for another conversation with us.
Oh, man. Thank you so much for having me, Joe.
Every time I talk to you, I think, I got to keep talking to this guy because it's so good and it's just fun to talk to you because we both enjoy some similar kinds of areas of human development, and we know from past conversations we both believe that for all the good technology and all the good software and all the things that we use, if we don't have people who are creative, insightful human beings who are driving our work, it eventually all comes to a stop. And so we are people. That's one of the first things I liked when I first met you. You are a people, and that makes you my people. So I love investing in people and determining how we can help them get better and find more joy and meaning in their work. And I'm gonna throw it back to you and let you talk a little bit about how you all do that at your company, as far as the assessments, employee engagement, and all those cool things that I love. I want to hear more about that from you, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, thank you for that. Kind words, man. I definitely see the world through people, and that is, I believe, a blessing and a gift, because everybody does not. But that's, I think, why people need folks like us, to be better partners, right? And I know from a strengths perspective, you understand that. That's why it's so important to not only have really sharp individuals, but sharp individuals together create well-rounded teams. I think there's definitely a myth that people can be well-rounded, but teams definitely can. And so, PSP has been around since 1946. Came across the business with some partners of mine, a few years back. And one of the things that intrigued me the most about it is because of my time at the Gallup organization and, focusing on development and, knowing the difference between a selection tool and a development tool, which we'll get into a little bit, because I think we need to debunk some myths, for sure. It was really
like you read my mind.
Yeah, like that. So the first director of research for PSP in 1951 was a gentleman by the name of Dr. Frederick Herzberg. If, as you listen to this, you have no idea who he was, you will be very intrigued that he's considered one of the patriarchs, when it comes to human motivation, employee motivation, etc. A lot of his original research around the two-factor theory or motivation theory, are foundational both in, Gallup's research, and I'd argue, basically every development selection tool that exists today. And he discovered those things actually while he was director of research at PSP Metrics in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in 1951. And then the second director of research was a gentleman by the name of Ray Hackman, who went on to be another, considered like another patriarch who went on to be a professor at University of Michigan, et cetera. And I was so intrigued by the fact that I had no idea what this company was. And yet had, spent unbelievable time at the Gallup organization, and, once again, kind of learned the nuances of, a psychological assessment that is used for selection purposes, as opposed to one that's used for development. And so just hopping into that for a second, and I'm going to explain this from my perspective. I am not a doctor, but I like to call doctors friends. Maybe pop on their podcast or other things.
I like to say I know a lot about a little bit. That's my tagline. So carry on.
I like to use a baseball analogy because I play baseball and
man, we could do another episode on that alone, bro.
Right? Yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely. We will. We will. And so I'll use a pretty famous stadium, Fenway Park in Boston, where my family and I live. And so I would say that majority of development assessments, so tools, psychological tools or personality tools that are focused on being used to coach and develop and grow people, are the equivalent of, say for me, we can say Donnie plays in Fenway Park. Jeff Williamson may play in Wrigley Field, right? And some of our audio folks, like they may be in what is the old, Candlestick Park, right? Or something else. And so they're a little bit more broad, like some specificity, but they're broad because they're specifically focused around continuing to coach and develop people, not as, I'll say rigid is the word that I'll use, because once again, you're supposed to be able to help coach, grow, develop, and improve, people. I believe that the difference, though, is that if we went back to a selection tool, then the specificity is typically around role and even specificity in industry. And so using the baseball analogy again, a selection tool would say, Donnie prefers to sit behind the home team dugout on the first row in the fifth seat. And even if he tells you that he's okay sitting on the green monster, if you put him on the green monster, i.e. this role, he may show up for the first game, maybe even the first week, maybe even the first month. But eventually he's going to stop showing up. And I think that at least for those who understand the game of baseball, and hopefully that example is one that brings you a little bit closer to some of the nuances. And because you end up finding a lot of people, and I'm sure you coach folks or consulted organizations who believe, as an example, that strengths, Clifton Strength Finder, they use strengths as a selection tool. And so, my top 5 are achiever, individualization, arranger, belief, and maximizer, right?
Maximizer is my number 1.
There we go.
I get you.
There we go.
Yeah, I get you.
And so it's interesting to me because I've come across organizations who want, they only want achievers in sales roles, right? Or they only want somebody with woo, right? And for those of you who haven't taken, winning others over, right? And so, and in a funny way, your strengths are not indicative of whether or not you can be successful in a business development or sales role. Now, it may be indicative of how you go about achieving your sales goal or quota, but it doesn't necessarily mean that if you don't have achiever, I don't have woo as an example, right? But in a funny way, I know how my strengths, actually are here to help me achieve. So as an example, from a business development perspective, belief is actually extremely important for me because I can't sell anything that I don't believe is really going to do what I'm expressing to you that it will do. So even as we're talking about PSP, as we're talking about selection tools, as we're talking about development tools, I wouldn't be great, Jeff, at what I do if I didn't fundamentally believe that if you take action, if you put these people through these assessments, if you're willing to spend time learning more about how to utilize them and where to put them in, your talent acquisition process or in your employee life cycle, I just wouldn't be able to be effective because of that nuance, once again, of the difference between development and also selection tools.
Yeah. And you know this too. Any Gallup folks or friends you talk to would say, oh no, we don't want you using Clifton Strengths for a selection tool
At all.
And it's not unusual for me to have somebody say in a conversation to say, well, I really like this, so should we be looking for this certain strength for that particular job? And I'm quick to say, okay, 30-second timeout. Let me explain this to you.
Circle back.
No. Let's review. And I'm so glad you brought that up because, and I think too, to their benefit, I think, sometimes people who know a little bit more about the history of Dr. Clifton is like, well, his company that he started before Gallup was called Selection Research. So I think sometimes people look at that and go, well, I'm confused. But it's like, no. That was a different phase before Gallup and Clifton Strengths. It's about identifying those best things in people and helping them align what they do with the best things about them. Because as he always said, passion and strengths go together. That's one of my favorite quotes.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's unbelievable, man. And so what we do at PSP Metrics is we work with organizations in a funny way, have historically kind of been focused on the pre-hire selection, kind of portion. And so our proprietary assessments, will help folks look for a lot of frontline, funny enough, blue and gray collar, workers within, we have clients within manufacturing, energy and utilities, and also construction and home building are three of our largest industries. We also have clients within hospitality and the restaurant industry and others. But we've really built an expertise around really focusing on more of those frontline individuals and even, frontline managers or mid-level managers, and do some, executive selection and coaching as well. But it's largely focused on, on selection, man. And so, the development aspect, our tools do have the ability to, because of what we know about someone's psychometric wiring, we can develop, some tools and plans for people to grow and develop. But that's what we've been doing for, what would that be, 77 years or so now?
Wow.
Or more. So that's what we've been doing. And it's exciting. And once again, as we talked about, I think in a previous episode, human capital, I believe, is just the most valuable asset that any organization has. And one of the interesting trends we're seeing now is, once again, over the past few years, I think a lot of organizations were really almost in this kind of tailspin, right? You're trying to figure this out. We have to have bodies, and so really, we saw a lot of clients who weren't necessarily, they didn't want the selection tool or assessment to be a hurdle because they were just they just wanted a warm body, right? Hey, we're going to hold up a mirror. If you can breathe on this and fog it up, like, you got the job.
You're in.
Right? You got what it takes. And so it's been interesting because probably over the past 12, and I'd even argue 18 months, but 12 or so, is folks have wanted to slow down and really take the time to make sure that they're evaluating the candidates who are joining their organization, but also we've seen an interesting shift with a focus on retention efforts, right? And so we've had a lot of, coaching and development engagements since the beginning of the year that are largely focused around, hey, can you take what you know about, some of these senior leaders, what you know about these frontline individuals that you helped us select over the past couple of years, and coach them around not only how they're wired, but so they get a better understanding of the team that they have
Mhm.
And, can you help us can you help coach us around kind of the talent landscape, if you will,
It sounds like a blast.
of those individuals, right? Yeah, which,
Yeah. Yeah.
my team, they're phenomenal at that kind of stuff, man. And we've been, I think just it's been a lot of fun being able to engage,
Mhm.
with folks as people have come back
Yeah.
around to say, hey, we need to be more thoughtful about the people who are joining our organization, and also make sure that we have a clearer understanding of the talent within our organization and how we focus on developing and retaining them.
Yeah. I'm guessing you personally and your team as well sees this as you work with clients, but it is pure joy for me when I see those expressions or those
Mhm.
reactions, if it's a one-on-one or a training scenario where you can just tell that something, the lights went on or
Mhm.
something hit the switch and oh,
Mhm.
they just embraced something maybe
Yep.
about themselves or their leadership style or what brings
Mhm.
them the most meaning out of their work. And to
Yeah.
just be in the room and to think, I got to see that, or I got to be a part
Uh,
of that, right?
yeah.
When they're just like,
Mhm.
that's why I love my job. That's
Yep.
the best thing
Mhm.
about my job. And they maybe just
Mhm.
hadn't unearthed that yet. Oh
Yep.
man, that's joy. That is
It
joy.
is. Absolutely, man. We've been experiencing that, as we've been rolling out kind of some client education efforts, right? And a lot of that, in a funny way, is rooted in kind of what we originally talked about, right? It's amazing how you can have organizations, and we have some clients that have been with us for a couple decades, right?
Sure.
And so because we haven't necessarily proactively educated them, and we've been their partner, some of which we do basically everything except recruiting for them, right? So we're sending out the assessment, we're writing things for them, we're giving them feedback and narrative reports on who these individuals are. They can pick up the phone and call a psychologist and ask them, like, "Hey, who do you think?"
Yeah. That's pretty handy.
At times, right, we're recommending or not recommending depending on the
Hmm.
organization.
Hmm.
And so that's it's kind of an easy button, if you will, for some organizations, but at the same time, as and whether we're talking about culture, or selection, or any of these things, what happens, right? You can begin to kind of create this reality and some of these, I'll say, myths, or beliefs that may not necessarily be true around, like, oh, well, if this person gets like this type of score, we shouldn't hire them, right? And in actuality, um, we don't technically tell any client you should not hire this person. What we
Yep.
do talk to them about is, here's how this person is going to actually show up at work. And if you decide to hire this person, here are the things and areas that you should be aware of, and you should probably
Hmm.
surround them with these types of
Hmm.
people, or
Hmm.
give them some sort of tools so that they
Hmm.
can fill this gap
Yeah.
because they're naturally wired in this way.
Yeah.
And that's a nuance, Jeff, that once again, a
Hmm.
lot of folks don't necessarily, I think, understand. And this is now just Donnie's opinion. I'm also not convinced that, candidly, organizations even want to understand. Right? I think
Mm.
that we live in a microwave based society where everyone is looking for an easy button.
Hmm.
There's a lot of organizations, SaaS-based companies that are claiming that we can give you the answer because we know exactly what this person should be, this role. We know what your problems are, etc. All you have to do is sign up for XYZ monthly amount, and we will tell you. And folks are willing to sign up for that, right? It's like my Netflix account, right? Like, take my money monthly. I'm going to go
Yeah.
in and watch my episodes or shows, and and I don't want to have to think about what I'm going to watch. Like, the algorithm is going to recommend other things
Yeah.
to me.
Tells me what I
Uh,
like.
yeah, and people, I think, some of that has naturally just kind of bled into even
Hmm.
how folks think about culture,
Hmm.
development, and even the selection of talent,
Yeah.
for their organizations.
As you were saying, I was thinking, okay, MLB comes up on my TV when I turn it on because the algorithm goes, "Ooh, you watch baseball every day. We're going to recommend some games for you." Yeah, so that's a little truth telling. Not ashamed. So one of the things too, when you think about the services and the skills that you bring to your clients that you were just describing there. Is there, have you found any certain size of company? Does that factor into it? Or, because you mentioned, hey, manufacturing, frontline employees, et cetera. Have you seen any shift in that, say the last couple of years because there's, I've worked with a company that's 15 people, small manufacturing company. And of course, there's manufacturing companies with thousands of employees. So talk about your sweet spot so far.
Yeah. Our clients really run the gamut of, fortunately and unfortunately, Jeff. So, I mean, I can give you examples of really a really large tire manufacturer that's one of the largest in definitely in the U.S. that, we've been doing selection for once again, a couple decades. And they put, arguably a couple of hundred candidates through every week and, and beyond. Right. And then, at the same, I could give you like a regional home builder that, has a team of like 15 and they won't hire a person that's not assessed by us. Right. Literally, we've assessed their entire team. That it's taken them like 2 years to build that team, but we also, everybody goes through our assessment. So, it really runs the gamut. A decent portion of our clients, once again, have been with us for at least 10 years, and some of which have been with us longer. We've had a client or two that's been with us since like the 90s, right? So, really interesting. Obviously, a lot of this work is, kind of episodic, in that way, but really intriguing, in a funny way. We've also specialized, I think, and kind of built this expertise where historically we've just been referral, right? So if you think about energy and utilities, we developed an expertise in helping organizations select system operators, right? And so as we're talking about, individuals that are running power stations, we developed like a very specific, kind of testing and assessment for those individuals. And so that's just a niche, kind of, perspective that, that thank God we've been able to develop. And because we've done that, we have a number of organizations that only come to us when they're looking to hire system operators, right? And we're okay with that. And, candidly, I'd love to do more of that work. When the state of Texas was having some issues with power, I was excited. Number one, because we don't work with any companies in the state of Texas when it comes to power. And so I was kind of like, well, hey, man,
there'd be some options there. Yeah.
There's definitely some opportunity. They could use our help. So anybody who is running a large utility in the state of Texas, give us a call.
Come on.
It's been really great. And hopefully that answers your question. I think but we have a couple, when I mentioned the restaurant, industry, we have a couple, growing franchises, one that's on the West Coast and really starting to expand and grow, back towards the East, and another one that I actually eat lunch at as frequently as I can when I'm in Pittsburgh. That, once again, they've gone from one location to, I think, like 6 or 7 now. The West Coast franchise is, expanding, and they're probably going to hit 12 to 20, locations and stuff now. And we're talking about doing all the selection for not only their frontline employees, but there's a significant focus on that mid-level manager, because historically we've kind of helped them with selection of their operators, right? So kind of those GMs and operators that have worked together. And so now, as they're going to expand significantly, it's how do we once again kind of help them, with more of a assess this talent landscape that they have, and who are those frontline leaders that ultimately are going to be managing those people as well. So they're being more thoughtful about that, and it's always exciting, early on, especially when organizations are attempting to discover, what does success really look like? Because I've also asked that question a bunch, where it's amazing to me. You can ask a leader, hey, do you know who your top performers are? Right? I've never met a leader that's going to tell me, no, I don't know who my top performers are. But the next question is the one where they start pausing. And the question is, well, what makes them a top performer? What about them means they're a top performer? And typically it's like, oh, well, maybe this person sells a lot. Maybe it's what you think, etc. And then the final question really kind of level sets us, I think, in our conversation. And I always say, can you go out and hire more people like that person? Can you go and duplicate that person then, if they're really a top performer? And the answer is
no. Because they don't know enough to quantify or detail what it is that's the magic that person brings. So they can't go get 10 more to run 10 new franchises for them, right?
They can't. They can't.
Yeah. Wow.
They can't. And that's where we, typically, will fit in and help people, understand a little bit more about, what it takes to, be a great performer, but specifically within your organization. And, as when you're thinking about research and even just, well-rounded data sets and comparatives, it's great when you can actually look at the entire landscape of that organization, top performers, bottom performers, people in the middle. And then a lot of times what we'll do is we'll actually create custom norms specifically for that organization, and of course have the industry comparisons. But then you begin to compare new people that you're bringing on and even current people who might be high potentials to top performers within your organization. But you also know the things or characteristics of bottom performers, so you won't kind of make those mistakes again. And so over time, you can literally see the level of talent within an organization rise, and not necessarily just for what a top performer looks like in that industry, but specific to what success looks like within your organization. And I believe that our clients, appreciate that work. And we have some folks who are also just, I believe, ahead of the curve as they're, thinking about talent. And it's been a blessing to be able to assist them in that work.
Very cool. Well, you're doing a lot of great work for a lot of different industries and companies. I want to be sure and give you a chance to drop your contact info.
Yeah, absolutely.
Your company, if they said, wow, this guy needs to be my new best friend, I need his help, I'm from Texas, then I want them to know where to find you, Donnie.
So number one, you can find me on this episode, which I'm sure is going to come out, soon. But PSPmetrics.com. That's Paul Metrics, plural.com is our website. You can definitely find us there. From a social perspective, you can always find me on LinkedIn. Feel free to send me a request, say that you heard me on this episode, and we should spend a little bit of time. Happy to find 15, 30, 45 minutes if we want to chat a little bit about human capital and your employee life cycle and how we could potentially help you improve some of those areas. So look forward to it, and very excited to hear from some of you.
Thanks so much. I wish you much success. I love your heart. I love how you do your thing. And it's been such a treat to talk to you again. So thanks for coming on and sharing part of your day with us, Donnie. We'll definitely want to do this again. This is too much fun to not.
Thank you so much for having me.
You bet.
Thank you.
Yeah. All righty. Thanks. Many blessings, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Leadership Level Up. Please subscribe so you don't miss future conversations with great leaders.